Are you living near a cell tower? Maybe that's why you found this page. Here's a cell tower map of Canada. Let's just, for example, type in London in Ontario. What we get is all of the cell towers that are up to date in this map in that region, and we can drill down. And these cell towers are in amongst subdivisions, places of work, universities, schools, hospitals, you name it. We have got a lot of great information for you coming up. Stay tuned. So you might be familiar with this kind of view. See that cell tower peeking out over this Herbsville subdivision of beautiful homes? Here's a reading, 13,100 microwatts per meter squared. What does that mean? We'll get into that. Here's a Cambridge farm field beside a housing development with a cell tower. Another high reading, 16,200 microwatts per square meter. I could go on. Here's one in London. This cell tower isn't actually on the map yet, it's so new. And we've got a reading here from, I think that's probably 500 meters away, 9,820 microwatts per meter squared. So what exactly is going on here? In all of those cases, you'll notice the cell tower is elevated. What happens is they angle these antennae downwards on an angle that its trajectory basically blankets the rooftops of these houses. Now, if this were a brick-sided home, these rays would not get it through that brick as well as they do through the roof line. And the issue is that our roof lines, nothing's protected. So this emanates the entire home, particularly the upper bedrooms in this kind of case. So in those subdivisions I showed you, those homes are being bathed with this radio frequency radiation from the cell tower. And we're going to get more into that real soon here. Just a moment. Over at our website, we have a page under the resources, Cell Tower Radiation in Ontario. And if you scroll down here, there's some good information. We talk about some studies, some comments from Environmental Health Trust. You know, what they're saying is that the exposure to cell towers now has been proven to cause cancer in rats. And legally, we are exposed to it all day, all night long. So again, some good information here. What we've got is a city map here, so you can click into any one of these cities, and we've visited, in most cases, these cities, and we've put up some numbers like those photos I showed you of actual cell towers and readings at particular locations. They're actually randomly selected locations. We just map out the distance once we've taken the readings and the pictures. So let's get into some of the health concerns. There's an organization called BioInitiative, and these guys compiled 1,800 to 2,000 studies in 2012 from peer-reviewed scientists creating their own independent studies, and then they updated the report between 2014 and 19 studies. And these are the updated ones here. If you can see here that the radio frequency impact on free radicals, oxidative stress, which we'll get into in a second, and neurological effects, and then they also talk about the extremely low frequencies, which is like AC electric fields coming out of the walls of your home where the electric wires run. Anyway, in all of these cases, take a look at this. So E means had an effect, NE means didn't have an effect. So 89% had an effect, 89%, 91%, 72%. It's pretty overwhelming. There's something going on. Here's a foundation that talks about that same 2012 BioInitiative report, and it talks about the 1,800 studies and its effects on EMF, including DNA damage, increased production of stress proteins, reduction of free radical scavengers, melatonin, we'll talk about that, neurotoxicity, it just, cancer, it goes on. So it even talks about this Dr. Martin Pall, who has discovered a key link in this whole process through what's called voltage-gated calcium channels. And I'll give the links to all this stuff here because this is all very good reads. This is just something that came up. You could search these kinds of things all day long. They talk about cancer clusters. There's a lot of concerns about schools now. Parents are getting their backs up about cell towers because kids are, from an epidemiology standpoint, the number of kids in certain areas are getting higher occurrences of cancers, and the parents are pinning it on the cell towers. And this just talks about a woman in, I think it was England, who lived within 100 meters of a cell tower, got breast cancer 7 years later, and then surveyed her neighbors and surveyed her subdivision and really high occurrences. And then it talks about an actual study from a German. So the German team published an article that talked about living within 400 meters and how they determined cancer clusters. So we'll take a look at what might be contributing to some of that. So back at our website under the EMF Dangers blog, we have a great blog with this doctor, Erica Mallory Blythe. And there's the video you can watch. But we've basically written it out here, and it talks about the oxidative stress. She talks about how the radio frequency and other EMFs have impacts, biological impacts on the human body, particularly the cells, that lead to disease endpoints. And she details the disease endpoints here. You can pause the video and take a look at that more closely. And this is startling that RF damages biology at non-thermal levels. The industry argues that you have to have ionizing radiation to destroy DNA, and it has been debunked. Non-ionizing also does biological damage and destroys DNA. Biological disruption is not linearly proportional to intensity or frequency. So you know that reading that I showed you on those homes, they were in the extremely high frequency, which suggests that those are areas to not kind of hang around in, yet we're all sleeping in those areas. But the challenge is that if we were to cut that in half, for example, this is suggesting that even at a lower level, it's not, the biological effects don't disappear in a linear fashion. So we have to measure all areas to try and get them down to certain levels of this radiation, which is non-native radiation. And here's this, speaking of non-native, so this is a really great graph. It's hard to read here, but at this end here in the left lower quadrants, this is like, if I back off my mouse here, you can see that it's 1 kilohertz right here. And below the 1 kilohertz would be our electricity in our homes, which is at 60 hertz here and 50 hertz in Europe. You can see that this is the natural, the green is the natural background radiation that we've evolved with. This is the addition here of man-made EMFs at that time. And then you can see in these higher ranges of power densities, like 1 megahertz, 1 gigahertz along the bottom, I'm reading there, 1 terahertz, you can see that the traditionally natural background radiation didn't exist there. There might be some windows that came in from outer space, but very minimal in terms of impact. And we've just filled out and filled out in the 1950s, we filled it out, 80s, we filled it out with things like radio and other radio frequency bandwidths. And we've just added on substantially. We've bathed ourselves to something like 1 trillion times. I think it says at the top here, it says this shows I don't know what that is. It's like 1 trillion fold increase at the 1 gigahertz level over 100 years. So we literally have not evolved with this stuff, and we're kind of pretending that it doesn't have any impacts. And these lines at the top here are the governmental limits that supposedly have been found to now elicit cancer in rats, and we're legally subjected to these levels, which could explain why all the cell towers are going up, because they're within those levels, right? So then there's the Ramazzini study you can click into, and then this shows, there's DNA breakage for the non-thermal or the non-ionizing radiation. Children are more impacted by it. Talk about 60% more absorption. Of course, this stuff is cumulative. They are going to experience it for a longer life. When I grew up, we were at these low levels in 1975, and now you can see it's just gone through the roof. But the challenge with that is it's not the same type of radiation. It's more and more nowadays what they do is they pulse it. So here's the radiation of a sine wave, which could be, we could see that could be the 60 hertz in our home. It could be 900 megahertz of a smart meter. It could be 2400 megahertz of a Wi-Fi router. Or it could be what's coming off the cell phone towers. But what they do is they pulse it now. So they take that wave and they add these packets of information and data to it so they can make use of the bandwidth and pack more data through it. And so think of it as a clothing hanging on your clothesline outside, and these packets are pushed through the air. It's been described as, they're like hammering away at our cells. So this is a really neat video. I'll put a link down to the bottom here. And what they do is they say, do cell phones cause cancer? Actually, we're asking the wrong question. It's how does a mobile phone prevent the human body from curing cancer? It's melatonin. Melatonin is like the body's wonder drug, which is known to kill off the free radicals. The free radicals are known for causing cancer in our bodies. It disrupts that, and they go in and they talk at a great deal about how the pineal gland does not know how to differentiate between light in the day and EMFs that might be coming through our walls in the night, even though we're sleeping in a dark room. So they don't produce melatonin. They're talking about how melatonin is and the reparative state only happens during our sleep, and if we don't get it, then we're at risk of a weakened immune system. It's a wonderful video for that, for describing that. And it talks about how women with breast cancer have 1/10 the melatonin in their system compared to women of the same age, healthy women of the same age, and men with prostate cancer, 1/2, kids with autism, 1/2. So really interesting information there. This is a fellow, Dietrich Klinghardt, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, has been working in the EMF area from the health standpoint with his patients for years and years, and this is a video that shows one of the solutions on how to reduce and shield this stuff from coming into at least your sleeping space. And here's an example of what he had in the background, which is a special material that you cascade over the bed and it blocks out the EMF radiation. But there's other ways to do it as well. And I'm just going to show you some pictures of what we did. Basically, it was a nice looking room. We painted it black with paint that shields all of this EMF. Here's just another angle of the room. And in here, you can see that at the end of it all, it just got a top coat, so the black goes away. But I'm going to show you what it actually does to the radio frequency that comes in. So here's a short video outside the hallway of this particular room.
Faraday cage in a room.
And now backing up into the room from the exposed hallway, closing the door, and you can see that the radiation just drops right off. So it shields it.
So, folks, thank you for watching this video. It's a lot of information. It's not desirable. Look, you saw the cell tower map. We're blanketed in all the cities, and it's only increasing. So these are not going away. People love using this technology. You see the lake behind me? Lakes like that are getting cell towers looking over their waters. Cottagers, are streaming data, are streaming videos these days instead of using a landline. In our cities, it's all going to wireless. So we're not getting away from this stuff. The science, when you think of the scientists that come up with these independent peer-reviewed studies, and you saw that bioinitiative report that showed, 80s and 90% effects, what is it that's motivating these scientists to come up with these results? Pure science. On the other hand, what's motivating an industry that's promoting their products? Now, if I hold up this $10 bill and I put it in between the camera and that beautiful picture of the lake, does it kind of get a little distorted what the right thing is to do? $10 not enough? Okay, let's take a 50. What happens? Now stack 1 trillion of those behind it. What do you think is going to win out? So what I invite you to do is to read the science and do what we know will remove those exposures from being a factor in your home.
Look, if you're living close to a cell tower, visit our web pages. Get to know as much information as you can. Give us a call. we will consult with you on this. Information will come out, take readings, or we'll empower you to take readings, and we'll walk you through and or do a complete mitigation project for you. Thank you for watching this video, and stay safe.